Hello, hi everyone. How are you doing? First, I want to inform you that this session is gonna be recorded. Please note that it's all gonna be recorded. Okay, so let's start. Hope you're ready. Okay, so this session, exploring Blender into the realm of 3D, is an introduction into the 3D course of Blender. So first, I'm gonna have a little presentation of myself to get to know your tutor. So my name is Manel Bech. I'm from Algeria. I graduated 2 years ago with a master's in software engineering, and I'm a software developer and 3D artist. Since then, my career was a mix of both, and I worked with some studios like Lightning Wolf Studio. You can check it. Okay, so let's start. What is Blender? Blender is a free 3D software where you can create anything virtually in it because 3D softwares are the best um, the best way to simulate our world because it has three axes just like the real world. It has X, Y, and Z. So you can literally create anything there and turn a cube into anything. Why cube? Because when you open Blender, first thing you find is an object that is a cube. Then you can modify it and create literally anything. So your limits in Blender are your skills and your imagination. I'm going to give you the skills in this course, and the rest is up to your imagination. Sorry. So what can you achieve with Blender? See that cube? That cube is turned into this and even more. These are some of my works that I successfully finished and delivered. So as you can see, Blender really vary. You can make a lot of things with Blender, from sci-fi and character design to product design to interiors to NFTs and 3D art. All of these are my works. I created those. And also animation, cel shading works. You can do a lot with Blender. And now I'm gonna show you um, a short film that was really known and famous in 2019. It's called Spring. It's all made with Blender. Let's just check 1 minute or so of it. Before we continue, can you guys hear me clearly and understand everything I'm saying? Please, if you have any question or so, just inform me. Am I clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So let's watch the So all of that was created in Blender from scratch, from modeling to texturing and shading and adding the colors to the smoke simulations, animations, literally everything there from scratch was made it with Blender without adding any external software. Yes, in Blender you can also do video editing, adding music and everything. That's where Blender can go. Like you could see how the quality of rendering is good, how smooth the animation is. You can achieve that once you get to an expert level in Blender. So what do you need to use Blender? All you need is your PC, your computers, and it doesn't even have to be high-spec computer. Your brain and imagination, as I mentioned, and sometimes the internet. Why sometimes? Because sometimes you need tutorials, sometimes you need to ask questions how to do this and that, and also you need to download add-ons and plugins sometimes for Blender to make things easier. We're gonna get to the point of explaining more of add-ons and plugins in Blender. And also you need it to get resources, which take us to the next point. If you are modeling something, it's okay to get resources online. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. This quote is said when you don't have to remake something from scratch while it already exists. For example, let's say you're working on landscape and you needed to put a lot of diverse trees. You don't have to create them one by one. You can just go to these platforms and purchase them from there. You can get them for free, or there are a lot of like high quality ones that have to be paid. For example, you're working on interiors and you have specific shape of sofas or chairs. You don't have to create them from scratch. You can just get them from here while focusing actually on getting the final result of your model. But this is not the only use for these platforms. You can also upload your models there. By the way, there are a lot of platforms for 3D models, and these are just the most popular ones among them. So here I think you will find most resources. It's almost impossible to search for any kind of model and you don't find it here. Well, which takes us to the next point of how to monetize your Blender work. Of course, one of our goals of starting anything like is to monetize our work. And to do that with Blender, like there are a lot of ways. First of them, let's say selling 3D models, which I was talking about. You just have to upload them into those platforms, put a price for them, or you can share it with the world and put it for free. Freelancing. I worked as freelancer for years, and yes, it is good. Once you get to the market there, you're gonna see a lot of demand on CGI and 3D in general. You can use platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, freelancing. They are like really active, and there's always a need, and they're asking for 3D works. You can sell 3D courses if you've got to the point of an expert, and you can upload them in Udemy or a lot of courses platforms. You can print on demand merchandise, which is something that can be done by all kinds of designers, not only 3D designers, but even 2D designers can do this. But 3D world is not too competitive. For example, you find a lot of 2D graphic designers, but you rarely find a 3D active designer or a 3D artist. Working in tech company, as I said, this field is not too competitive, not as other fields. So once you get there, you're gonna find your place. There's an important note, which is you need to find your niche, especially if you're going for selling your 3D models and if you're going for freelancing. Um, and this takes us to the next point. Your niche actually depends on your goal. Why are you learning Blender? So, can you tell me what's your goal? Why are you learning Blender? Can anyone share why?
I guess to create cool stuff. Like if there's any need for, I don't know, creating some kind of model, I can create it through Blender.
Okay, great. Yeah, as I said, with Blender, you can just bring your ideas to life. Like, no matter it is, you can literally create anything because it's simulation of our 3D world. So, anyone else want to share why do you want to learn Blender? Okay, let's say what you can do with Blender or what's the goals, the common goals from learning Blender. With Blender, you can go for product design, which is creating products such as perfumes, jewelries, especially jewelries. Let me tell you this, guys. Jewelries are really demanded, especially rings. For some reason, they're always sold in high prices in CG Trader and the platform I just showed you. And it's also because they do the 3D printing. They just print molds and they like it's easier for them to create rings this way. That's why product design is one of the most um, paths people of 3D in general go to. Game development. Here, this actually includes character design, environment design, assets design. You can do a lot of, you can create a lot of stuff for games in Blender. Architectural visualization. This is actually, Blender is actually not the best for architect, but yes, it could achieve great result for that. Animation and film production, as I already showed you that animation, how great the quality and rendering of it is, and it's all made in Blender. Virtual reality and augmented reality. Can you share with me what do you know about AR and VR? Anyone wants to share about what do you know about them? Okay, so simply put, VR is integrating yourself into the 3D world, and AR is integrating the 3D world into our world. I believe anyone has experienced or saw AR or VR before. So, with virtual reality, you can create anything, everything in Blender from scratch, from the environment to the assets, the characters, the animation, and then upload it to engines such as Unreal Engine or Unity to create just the interactive part. But most of VR things are created in 3D software. And for augmented reality AR, you can also create your model and animate them too in Blender, then upload them to super user friendly platforms such as AR Web and Ariel. Okay, we move to the next point, which is medical and scientific visualization. This actually doesn't apply to medical ones specifically, but any kind of, let's say, learning in general. Let's say that the med student see a picture of a heart or any kind of organs. They're not gonna understand it as well as seeing it in 3D from all perspectives and angles. Like when they see 360 angles, they can understand it better, analyze it better, and which gonna take to it took like to a great results in education in general. Let's say, for example, computer science students, they can also see the components of the computers and hardware in details and zoom them as much as they want, rotate them. It's all in 3D, and a lot of those are made with Blender. You can also create interactive experiences. This is similar to AR and VR, but it stays on PC. I'm gonna give you an example of that is applied here in Dubai. Lately, something has been going a little bit viral, which is the online supermarket. You just enter there to the 3D supermarket, you go purchase your items, pick them, put them in your cart, and walk in the supermarket like you're actually there, but you're just doing that on your PC. It's just like a game. You can ask a helper for assistance. You can yeah, but then when you pick your stuff and put them in the cart, you just pay them with your virtual with your card. This also helps a lot. It can be applied in hotels, hospitals. It helps like simulating trainings. Like the options are endless. Environment design. This can be a part of the virtual reality, as we mentioned before, and it can be also part of game development, which is designing the buildings, the landscape, and so on. So there are a lot of 3D designers that are specified for this only. They only make environment design, and finding your niche or your goal, your target audience, and so helps you find more clients in the future. Interior design. This one as well could achieve great results with Blender. As I showed you the gaming room I showed you earlier, I made it with Blender. But I think Blender is not the best option for interior design. I think 3ds Max is better for that. But the options for Blender are it's so varied. It can do a lot of stuff and achieve them greatly. Advertising and marketing. Um, this includes product design, but it can be like just, for example, animation of two people talking about services, or you can do anything with it, as I said. Character design, this one is as well included in game development as well, and it can be included in other stuff like anime. Yes, anime too can be made in Blender. Which takes us to the next point, which is cell shading and anime style. Cell shading is making the 3D object or the 3D model looks like it's flat. When you see it, you think it's 2D, but it's actually 3D. And it's a lot easier for animators to animate 3D than 2D. Because when you're animating 3D, you're just creating bones and moving them. But when you're animating 2D, you need to draw each frame separated, which is so tedious. So this is the best solution, and a lot of artists are moving to 3D lately. Who watch anime? Can you just raise your hand? At least press the button of raising hand if you watch anime. Oh, everyone does. Okay, great. So you know Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. That one has a lot of scenes, sorry, made in Blender. Like you can see that it's shown that it's 3D and well animated, very smoothly. It is made in Blender. And even the studio I worked with, I mentioned at the start, Lightning Wolf Studio, they are animation studio. They're making anime um, with also they include a lot of assets and characters using Blender. Okay, great. So we go now to the program content. In this course, you're gonna learn introduction to 3D in Blender, explaining, going like through the process, how to install it, the configurations, and so on. And then we go through the modeling basics of just scaling, rotation, grabbing, and so on. Then we go to modifiers to polish your models. And then we go to textures and shaders to add the colors to them and the textures. And then we go to physics and particles. Physics and particles in Blender are to simulate smoke, fire, fluids, and so on, liquids. Then we go to sculpting and weight paint. Sculpting is, as the name implies, it's literally like the real life sculpting. You have this sphere and you can make it, like create it, you can adjust it to make any shape, including faces or ornaments or anything. Rendering and lighting, this is the most important part. Why? Because if you worked well on the previous parts, no matter how good they are, no matter how well polished they are, they're not gonna appear well in the final result if the rendering and lighting isn't well adjusted. By the way, before I finish, you understand what's rendering, right? If you don't, just raise your hand. Just put press the button of raising hand so that I explain it. Okay. All right. So basically, rendering is having the output of your model, whether as images or as animation. Now you have your model on the program on Blender. You see it from all different angles. You can adjust it, you can edit it, but there is this thing we call the camera in Blender. Once you see it through the camera and render it, that's the final thing. That's the final result. Okay, understood? All right. So, and finally, after all of this, after you're able to make your own model and color it the right way and rendering it, even like to have the output of it, then we're gonna have a brief introduction into the animation with Blender, explaining the keyframes and adjusting them with time, and rigging. Rigging is basically adding bones to the object you want to animate. That's it. You just, for example, you have a human being shape, you just add bones where you want to animate those. For example, you have the arm. If you don't have the bone here in the rest, you're not gonna be able to actually fold it. So that's rigging. After learning all of that, we're gonna get to 20 minutes small project challenge. Like we just have a simple model and all the students have to be able to achieve that in a small amount of time, which is only 20 minutes, because because it's not very complicated. And I believe after learning all of that, you're going to be able to achieve making a final object in Blender. Okay, why Blender specifically? Why not going for other software? Is because Blender is open source and free. I believe free is understood by everyone, but open source is not. So being having an open source software means it can be modified by anyone, because especially Python developers. For example, you have this object cube, and you have to go through the process of scaling it to the double size. But you want an add-on or a plugin, or let's say a tool. Add-ons and plugins are a tool in Blender that helps you do things easier. Let's say you want a tool to apply to this object to make it the double size automatically, double the size, okay? So what do the Python developers say? Just put objects multiply by 2 and then put the Python code into Blender, where it has this section where you can put your codes and then put your add-ons or plugins, whether as paid or free. Yes, you can get money this way too, but I didn't mention it in how to monetize because this is specifically for developers. Who's the Python developer here? Okay, I guess no one's gonna. Oh, nice, great. So you can do this. And actually, let me tell you, if you don't know how to do something, you can just go to GPT and tell them code for me a plugin in Blender to do this and that, and then just upload that code into Blender, and tada, it's gonna work like magic. Great. Okay, so versatility. As we saw, Blender has a lot, like it can achieve a lot of things from sculpting to interiors to animations. It has the options are unlimited with Blender. As I said at the start, the only limitation in Blender is your skills and imagination. And hopefully you're gonna get the skills and the rest is up to you. Active community. It's like the number of Blender artists are is huge. It's also there are a lot of tutorials there. It's almost impossible to go search for specific tutorial and not find it about Blender. Uh, the community is super active, so there's also someone to ask. There's also always a research, like a resource you can reach to. So yeah, it's regular updates. This is thanks to the Blender company themselves, as well as it being open source. People are always adding new stuff constantly. Okay. Uh, it's also cross platform compatibility because it can work on Windows, on Linux, and on Mac. And it has a strong rendering engine. So let me explain this briefly. Blender has two engines. It has EV engine and it has Cycles engine. If you want to make something that is not too realistic, let's say you went for anime style, you can just render stuff with EV. It's gonna make it faster and easier to render. But if you want to achieve photorealism, then you have to use Cycles. Cycles makes the photos really realistic, as we saw earlier in that animation, how the mountains look realistic, the atmosphere, everything. So yeah, it has great ray tracing engine, and it's called Cycles. I think the only problem with it is that it takes time, especially with animation. But you can just put it there to render, even sometimes for 2 days to finish rendering. But the results are awesome, great. Also, yeah, I wanna add another thing about this. The robot head that I showed you at the start that I made. People thought it's real. They were like, "Are you making a robot in real life? Like it can achieve the photorealism where you don't make a difference between real life and the photo made in Blender." Add-ons and customization. We talked about this one. Since it's customizable, you can do anything that makes it easier for your next models and makes it easier for the rest of the world, because when you upload it there, anyone can use your plugins. Okay, so guys, do you have any questions about what we said up till now before we actually open Blender? I guess no questions. Okay, I'm gonna be presenting. There are two people raising their hands. Is there questions or Amir? Go on. Hello, Amir. Amir, I think you raised your hand now. Please, if you don't have question, remove the raising hand. Oh, okay, I can hear you now.
I have a question. I'm just trying this meeting. Can you short brief about what's going
Can't hear you clearly. Can you get closer to the mic?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you a bit.
Actually, I'm traveling now. Just I have joined this meeting. So can you brief me about this?
Sorry, I didn't hear you guys. Did you understand what he said?
No.
Can you type? No. Yeah, can you type it in the chat here? Yeah, please type the question. Amir, can you hear me? Can you please type your question here in the chat? Okay, I'll answer the question once it's typed. So, Papu Kumar, do you have a question? Go on. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Okay, as I said before, Blender has a lot of answers to this question. I don't know if you were here from the start. So, Blender, you can learn it to get to do product design, to do animations, to do character design, game development, assets and environments, interior design, etc., etc. With this, you can get a career, actual career in a field that is not too competitive. You can, and with time, I'm sure I'm one of the people who started this just to get money, just to get career out of it. But later on, it became my passion because I discovered how fun it is to create any idea you have in your mind, to bring it to life and see it in front of you, or to have, like, for example, prototyping of models or inventions that are not even created yet. You have them prototype into Blender. So the answer to this is simply because you can bring any idea to life, and not as 2D, as a 3D, which simulates this life better because it has three axes, x, y, and z, just like real life. Is that clear? Okay. Amir, please. Okay. All right. I'm gonna pass through them one by one and give you a short brief of what we did. So, basically, as I said, Blender is a 3D free software where you can create anything and bring it to life. And then I shared some of my works. These are my works. And show how you can do, like, different things, different fields. You can enter them with Blender. And then I shared the worldwide known short good quality Blender can achieve. And then I said that all you need in Blender is your computer, your brain, and sometimes the internet to answer questions and to get resources from these platforms, because you don't always have to make everything from scratch. Sometimes you can upload pre-made things such as trees, chairs, etc. from these platforms, where there are free ones and paid ones, according to the quality, of course. And then I said that those platforms, you can as well upload your models there and get money from them. This is how to monetize your Blender work. You can also work as freelancer, as a 3D freelancer, which is not too competitive. There is always demand for 3D. You can sell courses if you reach to an expert point and sell them in Udemy or courses platforms. You can print on demand merchandise. This can be done by any kinds of designers, but as I said, the 3D ones are rare. You can turn your ideas into um, you can bring your ideas to life and then see them printed on t-shirts, mugs, notebooks, etc., etc. And you can also work in a tech company. As I said, the field is not too competitive. There's always chance for 3D artists and designers. And I said, you need to find your niche because this is important. Once you create your niche, it's going to be easier for you to get clients. And finding your niche depends on your goal in 3D, or why do you use Blender. Blender can be used for product design, game development, architectural visualization, animation and production, VR, AR, educational field, interactive experiences, environment design, and so on. Character design, anime, even anime. Okay. And then I went through the program content, which has like introduction to Blender and styling, configuration, and so then modeling basics, scaling, grabbing, rotating, then the modifiers to polish your model and make things easier, then the texturing and shaders to add colors and materials to your models, then the physics and particle story to simulate hair, liquids, smoke, fire, and then the sculpting and weight paint, which is, as the name implies, sculpting like real life sculpting. You have a sphere and you can turn it into anything by like grabbing parts and so on. And then rendering and lighting, which is a very important phase because if you don't do this well, all of that's gonna be go in vain. This is gonna show the final result, so it's a very important part. And then we're gonna have introduction to animation, just showing the keyframes and how to adjust them with time and so on, and rigging, which is adding bones to character to animate them. And at the end of the course, we're gonna have 20 minutes small project challenge where we model an object in only 20 minutes and adding everything to it, like from shading to lighting to rendering, everything. And then I think you attended this part, I believe. Why Blender? Which I said because it's open source and free, and it has a lot of things, a lot of options you can do with it, sculpting, and animation, and so on. And also, it has a really active community, so you can always find answers to your questions or share your works, and so on. It has always regular updates because people always add in plugins and tools to it. It's open source for that, and it's cross-platform compatibility because it can be used in Linux, Windows, and Mac, and it has a strong rendering engine, which is Cycles. It's called Cycles, which achieve photorealism, and it has add-on and customization where people can add their own tools to make modeling easier. So this is a brief of what we went um, through the past. Okay. What do you mean live location? Sorry. Please, anyone type for me or tell me what you mean with live location. Live location. Okay, so now I'm gonna share with you Blender. I'm sorry. Can you see my screen? Okay, so who knows this place? Just open your mics and tell me because I'm not in the meet. Nobody knows this place. You've never been there. All right, so this is a global village in Dubai. Um, this is what I've been working on lately, and I thought of sharing it with you because even though it gets a lot of details, but once you achieve you practice a lot on Blender, I could achieve this in 3 days, and it's not that hard when you practice a lot with Blender. Okay, so let's take a look quickly on Blender. Alright, so this is what Blender looks like when you open it. Don't get overwhelmed. I know it's a little bit scary because there are a lot of tools, a lot of things to explore. But trust me, once you get to know the basics, everything's gonna be way easier. So when Blender starts, there is the main object, which is cube, and that's why we said at the start how to turn cube into anything. And we have this lighting to add the lights, and we have the camera. As I said earlier, what matters in modeling in Blender is the final result, the output. This output can be seen through the camera. So if you open Blender and press 0, you can see what the camera looks like. If I render this now, I'm gonna see only this part. Can you see it? Okay. So how to model in Blender? You actually just start with this, then you scale it, you grab it around, you rotate it, and you can create simple, like basic shapes. Let's say a sphere. You can create cylinder, and so on. And then once you're familiar with how to shape them, you're gonna go you're gonna be able to create anything with Blender. So even adding the colors is not that hard. You just go to materials and add different colors. But Blender has so many layers, like viewports. This is when you model, you're in on this shading viewport. This one's called shading viewport. It's the basic one. And once you add materials, you're just caring about the model shape. Okay, you model it here. When you're finished and you want to add materials, you go here, this viewport, the second one, where you can see how the colors look like. For example, let me add red here. Let's add blue here. Okay. If you go to shading, you're not going to see the colors because here you care only about the shape of the model. But then you go to the next step, which is the materials, shaders and textures, as I mentioned in the program content. Here you need to care about the textures, how realistic it is, the materials, and so on. And then the final one, it presents how the lighting and the final render looks. So here, for example, if I remove this, you see there's no light. It can't be seen clearly. But if I go back and bring it, you can move the light around. This is the last phase in Blender. So you start with this one, the shading one, then the materials one, then the rendering one. So this is it in Blender in general, as like the very basic first step in it is to get to know this. Do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you. No, any system is good with Blender. Yeah, you don't even need high spec computer. Anything is good with it. But if you want to render a high, um, let's say high quality film, short film, or animation, as I showed you earlier, you need a better computer. You need good graphics, because if you render it on a computer that is not that good, it's gonna take days. It may take days and not even finish the render as you want. But if you're talking about modeling, just the modeling phase, it all can be done in any PC. Okay, any other questions? I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed the session. Wait, let me share with you. Okay, thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the session and got to like Blender a little bit, like already before even starting to use it. The entire course is gonna be 1 month. It's gonna be like 10 hours, 3 hours each week, which are divided into 1 hour and a half, 1 hour and a half, 2 sessions per week. All right, welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Okay, no more questions. All right, thank you. Bye. Have a good day.